Hey guys, it's Dani. Alrighty, today we're gonna do a Q&A. One of you guys suggested that I start doing these videos as well, and I thought, well, what a brilliant idea, since I'm not what you would say very good with answering comments. So today I picked the comments that I received in the past 6 to 7 days. The orchid related questions that I got, that is, so hopefully this will help out. And if you enjoyed this video, just let me know down below, give a like, all that stuff, because if you do enjoy it, then I will do it on a regular basis. Alrighty then, so let's start. So first question comes from Natalie, and she is asking how to differentiate between an oncidium orchid and a Phalaenopsis orchid, since she has an orchid without any flowers. And well, it's not always easy to tell, especially if you're a beginner, but I hope you will be able to tell from mine. Phalaenopsis and pretty much their hybrids as well, such as the Oncidiopsis Bartley-Schwartz, have a different texture on the pseudobulbs and the leaves in comparison to many oncidiums or intergenerics. Phalaenopsis and their hybrids tend to have this matte look to the leaves and their pseudobulbs. Also, they don't tend to be very lime green. They tend to be a sort of grayish green. Shape-wise, there might be no difference. In my case, my Phalaenopsis is really tiny, but some Phalaenopsis can create bigger pseudobulbs than this as well. I would just go with the texture. If it's not glossy, then there's a high chance it is a Phalaenopsis or a hybrid of hers. If it's glossy and pretty lime green, most probably it is an intergeneric or an oncidium. But if you still cannot tell, the best thing to do is to just look at the orchid. When you see pseudobulbs are starting to shrivel, offer some water. If the pseudobulbs are plump and you can see the medium is moist, then don't offer water. When it comes to light, better play it safe. No direct sunshine, bright shade, or even direct morning sun works great both for Phalaenopsis and for oncidiums. Direct strong sunshine rarely works for any orchid, and when it does, we're already in Vanda territory. Next question comes from Juan, and he's saying that his orchid suffered from crown rot and currently does not have leaves, only roots. And he's asking what he should do. Well, it really depends. Just expand the description of this video down below. I'll share with you a link on how I like to treat crown rot generally without any type of toxic substances. And I think you should try to do that treatment. However, though, if the leaves have already fallen, then maybe the infection spread down to the stem, case in which I don't really think the orchid has many chances. Don't be upset if you're gonna lose the orchid, it's okay. We all learn from mistakes, but from now on, whenever you see the first signs of crown rot, you should act fast, because the faster you address the situation, the more chances you have to save your orchid. Anyway, I hope the link helps, and I hope you can save your orchid, but don't be discouraged if the orchid doesn't make it. Next question comes from Josie, and they're asking how long does the Phalaenopsis euclidean remain dormant in between blooms? And I've already answered this question with a comment, but I feel it's important to address it publicly as well, because I see a lot of people under the impression that Phalaenopsis have dormancies or they take breaks. Phalaenopsis, no matter if they are complex hybrids that you can find in stores or the summer blooming ones, the vast majority of them never actually take any breaks or dormancies or anything of the sorts, not in the same way that true dormancy orchids do. If you think your orchid doesn't really do anything, then that's just an optical illusion. Inside, things actually move. She might start to produce roots, she might start to create the bases of new leaves, and so on. After the blooms of a Phalaenopsis are done, she starts to grow vegetatively, meaning growing leaves and roots. And this is the most important period of this orchid's life, not the blooming. It is now that we need to offer the proper care, proper nutrients, and water, because this is the period when she is most active, not dormant. So to answer the question, the euclidean never really takes a break, but if you're asking when it's gonna bloom again, well, most probably next season, depending when it was in bloom. Phalaenopsis orchids only bloom once a year on a main spike. They start to initiate the flower spike in autumn, and they bloom summer and winter or springtime. They start to grow vegetatively in spring and summer, and thus the cycle repeats itself. Yet again, if you expand the description, you'll find some additional videos that I made that have to do with the subject. Maria asks if her orchid will ever rebloom if the humidity is very low in their home. And this is a comment on the Phalaenopsis care video, which I will link you down below. If you have a Phalaenopsis, I really wouldn't worry all that much about humidity. I would worry about maintaining the orchid properly watered. The rule with Phalaenopsis orchids is that you can water it when the medium becomes dry. However, it doesn't mean your orchid should be dry most of the times, particularly if your humidity is low. Phalaenopsis orchids, the ones that you buy from the stores or flower shops, are man-made hybrids, and they're selected to be very vigorous and very tolerant to home conditions, meaning low humidity as well. Or should I say in particular, I have never ever had issues with my Phalaenopsis orchids in winter time when I had my heating on in the house. So if you want to increase humidity, then you can with the use of a humidifier. This will benefit your health as well. But if you don't want to hassle with it, I suggest you don't worry about it, but maintain the orchid properly watered. Don't let it go super bone dry and stay that way for very long periods of times. Pay attention on the leaves, and if they start to flop or become leathery, then definitely you should water the orchids. Next question comes from Dr. Risa Francis, and she is asking, how do I take care of my orchids in my home? How many orchids I have and why I don't have a greenhouse? Well, I don't grow my orchids in a home. I grow them in a sort of separate type of room, which is in between a greenhouse and a grow room. In my greenhouse, things are pretty humid because I do live in a humid climate, but in this room, I do control temperature and maybe other parameters as well. I don't water each orchid at the sink, and down below in the description I'll share with you a link on how I water my orchids. It pretty much takes an hour and a half. Oh, and by the way, I tried the 8-liter bottle. It works so great. I actually don't need that wheel thing that I got from IKEA, if you know what I'm talking about. If not, check the description. Everything will be revealed there. But watering is just so easy now. It goes so fast. Right now I water them about once a week, maybe a little more than that because it's kind of cool. So actually maintaining orchids is not that difficult for me. I use semi-hydroponics for some orchids and just clay medium for other orchids. I don't need to repot. I'm not concerned with regular repotting because this medium never goes bad. And when I do have to repot, maybe because the orchid outgrew her pot or I want to change the pot, I just pluck the orchid out of her pot, put it in a bigger pot, put clay medium around it, and pretty much I'm done in about 5 minutes. So maintaining orchids, it's absolutely easy peasy. And no, I don't go with every orchid to the sink. That would absolutely hurt my back. They're all watered on the spot using a spray bottle, and yet again check the description to learn more. Oh, and I think I have about 200 and something orchids. I should do a head count, maybe 250, but they're not all big and jolly like the Vandas. I have a lot of seedlings as well. Pial or Pile, I'm so sorry for butchering your name, asks if their Vanda orchid will survive after, I will just not read because it's not okay for monetization, okay? So practically what I think happened is that my viewer cut the top part of a Vanda orchid. And well, it depends where you cut it. The portion that has the roots, I think it will survive because the roots can maintain the orchid hydrated, they can absorb nutrients and so on. So pretty much I think the orchid will start to create a basal keiki somewhere on the axis. About the top part, well, I don't know. If it's too tiny, it might actually not survive. If it's long enough, then you should try to maintain it maybe in a bowl with some sphagnum moss or some pebbles or something at the bottom. Maintain them watered. Pretty much try to create a chamber of humidity and place the top part of the Vanda orchid inside. Pretty much all you want to do is maintain the axis in high moisture. The goal is to promote root production. If the orchid can produce roots, it will. If not, then I'm not entirely sure if the top will make it, but definitely hold on to the base that has the roots. Most probably it will create a basal keiki, and that will be the new plant. Lavendariasis. I should start to not read these names because I feel like I'm butchering them. Sorry again. So they're asking how many new leaves does a Phalaenopsis need before growing a spike? And that is a really good question that I wanted to address, so I think we should look at a Phalaenopsis. So keep in mind, this is a general rule. It will not always happen like this, but for the vast majority of cases, a flower spike will start after the 3rd leaf in chronological order. From the top of the orchid, from the crown, if we count 3 leaves down, under the 3rd leaf is where a flower spike can be produced. So in my case, we have 1, 2, 3. These are the latest 3 leaves. And right under the 3rd one, I have a flower spike. Another way to count is 2 leaves down from one side. So the flower spike is on this side. And if we only consider half of the orchid, we can count 1, 2 leaves down, and there's the flower spike. But definitely in the vast majority of cases, it will not sprout higher than 2 leaves per side up or higher than 3 leaves total. Just count the 3 latest leaves that the orchid produced, and under the 3rd one, that's where the flower spike typically should arise from. Alrighty, please excuse the dog, I think it saw a leaf. Alright, the next question comes from Paul, and he's asking if Dendrobium Phalaenopsis require a winter rest like ordinary dendrobiums. Well, not all dendrobiums actually require a winter rest. It depends what you mean by ordinary. But the 2 most famous orchids on the market are the Nobiles and the Phalaenopsis. The Phalaenopsis do not require a winter rest. They like warm temperatures, even watering and bright light all year round. They will not take breaks, they will not lose their leaves unless they get very, very old. And even though they might seem to not do anything, they are always doing something. The Nobiles do require a little bit of a rest, but they're not fully deciduous. They are just semi-deciduous, meaning around this time you should start seeing some leaves falling from your Dendrobium nobile. They're usually the older leaves, not the new leaves. And as a general rule, the leaves last on a nobile for about 2 years until they fall. So the nobile does require a period with less water, no fertilizer, there's really no need, the orchid doesn't really grow anything, it is preparing flowers. However though, it's not truly dormant, like, let's say like a Phalaenopsis, which is a terrestrial orchid, but anyway, that's a truly dormant orchid. The nobile, not truly dormant, but it does benefit from a rest. My viewer Kat asks what's wrong with their orchid since all of the leaves just simply fell off. And well, it's kind of hard to tell what's the actual cause, but I presume it's a rotting of some sorts. Maybe crown rot, maybe stem rot. Anyway, if you check the description below, maybe the videos that I already added for my other viewers about crown rot will help. If the orchid absolutely lost everything and the stem is completely dry, then there's really nothing you can do for it, and the cause most probably was crown rot or stem rot. So be careful with that water in between the leaves and in the crown. If it sits too long, it can lead to rotting, and that's a pretty bad ailment for orchids, particularly if not spotted and treated in time. Okay guys, these have been the questions for today, but fear not, I do have many more questions saved. It's just that the video is already too long. So this will be a sort of part 1. If you've enjoyed it, I will answer in a video the other questions as well, make a part 2, 3 and so on. So I hope that by answering your questions, I helped you out, and also maybe other people who didn't actually leave a question, maybe you get some inspiration or you learned something. Anyway, let me know down below if you've enjoyed this type of video and if you think I should bring back the Q&As in this form where I can actually show you or elaborate a little bit more. And before I let you go, let me just remind you one more time, and I'll remind you many more times in the future, I have a second channel in case you somehow missed it. It's a gardening channel, and I think I've already uploaded a new video, or if I didn't, I will upload it today. We're gonna plant some tulips, some spring bulbs and all of that. So the link is down in the description. And with that said, you know the drill. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye! By the way, I have some news. So the Vandas really enjoy this time of year because the sun is lower and they receive sunlight pretty much all day long, starting from 9 o'clock in the morning to whenever the sun goes down. They love it, and everybody's kind of starting to produce flower spikes. I have 2 flower spikes on one of them. Things are pretty much dreamy, but I have a big surprise. This is my Vanda Sanderiana, and what do you know? Yes, she's producing a flower spike. There we go. And I think you can see it better. As far as I know, the Sanderiana blooms in summertime, but then again, my climate right now, you know, it can easily pass a summer. Although, it's not what you would call very hot. Anyway, I don't care. This orchid decided she wants to bloom. I'm gonna let her bloom. I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm so incredibly happy. Vanda Sanderiana is my absolute Vanda dream, Vanda goal, whatever you want to call it. I'm in orchid heaven right now, and I bet I'm gonna be even happier when I'm gonna see the blooms.